I'm coming to you today to read you another story. I noticed a couple days ago when I was out in my backyard that the flowers are blooming, the trees are growing, the leaves are coming out, plants are growing, and it's definitely true that spring is here. So it's nice to see all of the new growth and hear the birds singing, and hopefully we have some more beautiful days ahead of us. So I chose a book about a plant that's growing in someone's garden. This is a book about a turnip, and it is from a Russian folk tale. And the name of my book is Grandma Lena's Big Old Turnip. It was written by Denia, Hester, and illustrated by Jackie Urvanovic. So let's get started on Grandma Lena's Big Old Turnip. The whole thing started when Grandma Lena decided to grow turnips in her backyard garden. With her reading glasses perched on her nose, all winter she studied her seed catalogs, hoping to find just the right kind to plant. Grandma chuckled at all the fancy names. There were White Knights and Scarlet Queens, Royal Crown and White Lady. She finally decided on a turnip called Purple Top. After all, purple was her favorite color. When spring arrived and the ground was soft enough for digging, Grandma Lena planted the tiny seeds. She didn't worry that the air was still nippy. She knew turnips liked cool weather. Soon, tiny plants popped up. For the next month, Grandma Lena watered and weeded her turnip plants every day. "Hey, Lena," Uncle Isidore teased. "I hope you taught those turnips how to swim. You're watering them so much, I'm afraid they're going to drown." Grandma Lena grunted and said what she always believed. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. Every day the turnips grew. One was bigger than the rest. On the first day of June, Grandma Lena stepped into her garden to find the biggest, fattest, most gigantic turnip she had ever laid eyes on. What a fine turnip stew it will make, she thought. It's enough to feed half the town. From the porch, Baby Pearl stared at the turnip with wide eyes. "Big potato," she said with a giggle. Grandma Lena took hold of the enormous stem and leaves. She yanked and jerked and tugged, but that big old turnip would not budge. "Carl," Grandma called, "put down that newspaper and help me pull up this big old turnip." Grandpa took off his reading glasses and came running. Then Grandpa pulled on Grandma, while Grandma pulled at the turnip. They yanked and jerked and tugged, but that big old turnip would not budge. "Izzy," Grandma yelled, "stop eating up my peach jam and help us pull up this big old turnip." Uncle Isidore wiped his mouth and came running. Uncle Isidore pulled on Grandpa, Grandpa pulled on Grandma, and they yanked and jerked and tugged, but that big old turnip would not budge. "Nettie," Grandma yelled, "put the baby down and help us pull up this big old turnip." Aunt Nettie gave Baby Pearl a toy and came running. Aunt Nettie pulled on Uncle Isidore. Uncle Isidore pulled on Grandpa, and Grandpa pulled on Grandma. They yanked and jerked and tugged, but that big old turnip would not budge. "Rascal," Grandma hollered, "put down that bone and help us pull up this big old turnip." Rascal Rascal dropped his chew bone and came running. Then Rascal pulled on Aunt Nettie. Aunt Nettie pulled on Uncle Isidore. Uncle Isidore pulled on Grandpa, and Grandpa pulled on Grandma. They yanked and jerked and tugged, but that big old turnip would not budge. Baby Pearl came toddling across the yard, her diaper half undone. "Shame on us," said Grandma. "We forgot about Pearl." Baby Pearl pointed at the ground. "Big potato," she said. "Stand back, Pearl," warned Grandma. "I'm going to haul this turnip out if it's the last thing I do. Okay, everyone, pull." In all the confusion, nobody noticed that Baby Pearl was holding on to Rascal's tail. Then Rascal clamped onto Cousin Nettie's skirt. Cousin Nettie grabbed Uncle Isidore. Uncle Isidore grabbed Grandpa, and Grandpa held tight to Grandma. The whole family yanked and jerked and tugged with all their strength. Pop! At last, with dirt flying in all directions, that big old turnip burst out of the ground, and the whole family fell in a pile behind it. Baby Pearl clapped and said, "Uh-oh, fall down." By now the sun was setting. Everyone else went to bed, exhausted, but Grandma Lena stayed up late. She washed and chopped the turnip greens and put them in her biggest pots with some onions and bacon and cooked them until they were nice and tender. After that, she chopped up the giant turnip. It was so big there would be plenty left over for turnip casseroles, turnip fries, and pickled turnips. Then she made a turnip stew with potatoes, carrots, and peas. What would turnip stew be without cornbread, thought Lena, so she baked golden brown corn muffins. The next day, Grandma Lena invited all her friends and neighbors to help her fill in the hole and share her delicious turnip dishes. Half the town showed up with shovels, hoes, and spades. Some brought jugs of cool apple cider and lemony tea cakes to share. It was the biggest party since last year's 4th of July picnic. Everyone agreed that it was the best meal they'd had in a long, long time. The neighbors joked about what Grandma Lena would plant next year. "It'll be big," one neighbor said. "Lena doesn't do anything halfway." "Of course," said Grandma Lena. "Anything worth doing is worth doing right." That night, when the family was full and dozing in their chairs, Baby Pearl whispered to Rascal, "Big potato, all gone." The end. I hope you enjoyed that story, boys and girls. While you're out and about over the next couple of days, if you get outside to get some sun, if it's a nice day, I hope you look for some of the new growth that's out there. Some of the new plants, green leaves, flowers growing. Listen for the birds and just take a nature walk. Bye.